The Lenovo Phab Plus has fairly mid-range specifications, and if that doesn't seem impressive for the price, it's because you're paying for the huge screen and build quality. The processor is a Qualcomm Snapdragon 615, which has 8 CPU cores and runs at 1.5 GHz. There's 2 GB of RAM and 32 GB of storage. MicroSD card support goes up to 64 GB, though as already stated, this will be at the cost of the second SIM. The 6.8-inch screen has a resolution of 1080x1920, which is pretty good, but not as sharp as you might expect it to be. There's a 13-megapixel camera on the rear and a 5-megapixel one in front. The battery, which is not removable, has a capacity of 3,500 mAh. Talk time is rated at 24 hours and standby time at 20 days. You get 4G access through both SIM slots. There's support for the modern Wi-Fi 802.11 AC standard, but only Bluetooth 4.0 for some reason. Lenovo advertises Dolby Atmos sound enhancement and a specially designed 1.0cc sound chamber. Using the Lenovo Phab Plus was occasionally a chore, but that's more to do with its size and bulk than its hardware capabilities. That said, we did encounter a little bit of stuttering on rare occasions. Voice calls sounded a little hollow on both ends. We are not too critical of this, since calling is clearly not the device's primary purpose, but it's something potential buyers should be prepared to deal with. Gaming was pretty smooth with no noticeable problems in Dead Trigger 2. The big screen also worked well for other tasks. You can comfortably browse desktop websites, watch movies, play with creative apps, and even get work done. Typing was the most awkward part of the usage experience, because of the enormous and widely spaced on-screen keyboard. On the other hand, people who have a tough time with small touchscreens might find themselves quite comfortable with the Phab Plus. Videos played smoothly, but we were quite underwhelmed with the sound. The Phab Plus never really got loud enough for us, and sound was tinny and scratchy, especially with music. The speaker's positioning on the rear didn't really work for movies and games, and while voices came through clearly enough, ambient sounds were quite lost. The Dolby Atmos effects could certainly be heard, but we wouldn't necessarily say the sound was improved. The primary camera was decent, for the most part. Autofocus wasn't always on point and details suffered a bit, but photos generally looked great, unless we zoomed into 100%. Night shots were also pretty good, though the phone was of course slower. To lock focus and shutter lag increased quite a bit as well. Videos are taken at 720p by default, and though this can be bumped up to 1080p, we weren't pleased with the quality at all. Everything was grainy and dull. In terms of benchmarks, the Phab Plus scored 34,148 in Antutu and 18,197 overall in Quadrant. Graphics tests were underwhelming, with the device managing only 15 FPS in GFX Bench and 5,413 points in 3D Mark I Storm Extreme. The battery lasted 6 hours, 34 minutes in our video loop test, which would ordinarily be underwhelming, but is somewhat explained away by the huge screen. Day-to-day usage with a more realistic mix of gaming, web browsing, calling, and lying idle yielded on average a day and a half of battery life. Verdict: the Lenovo Phab Plus sits in a class of its own at the moment. 7-inch Android tablets with voice call